Hello, I just wanted to make a few remarks about this article that I've given you to read in conjunction with Nosedive, called Black Mirror's Nosedive as a New Panopticon. It's a fine article. It's basically all I could find. Uh, a very good connection with, obviously, with what we've looked at in Nosedive. Um, But it occurred to me in watching and rewatching Nosedive that what was really chilling about it is that it portrayed a new form of surveillance. And I say that, with the emphasis on new, in the sense that, well, if we contrast it with what we looked at in previous weeks, the surveillance state. The Chinese government has embarked, is well on its way to creating a what you call a traditional top-down repressive digital surveillance society. In that follows the model that we have been warned against since Orwell's 1984, written in 1948, and the idea of a state that would centralized authority that would use technology to surveil the people of a country, people of a community. And we've looked at that, and that is obviously a very big ethical issue. But what Black Mirror has suggested is that there's no need for a centralized authority to develop a very expensive and openly repressive instrument or means for surveilling a society, that it would actually probably be a lot easier to have the people, the individuals, surveil each other. And that's what we see in Black Mirror, where there's no obvious repressive state authority that's keeping an eye on everybody. Everybody's keeping an eye on everyone else. That is, everyone, because of their the system that they have in place, where they rate each other constantly with their cell phones, there is an enforced code of behavior that is very efficiently maintained without any kind of real effort on the part of the state. And that is, I think, is a very interesting idea. And in looking into it, just doing some research on it, I found that there is this idea of interveillance. That is not surveillance, the idea of being watched from the top, but interveillance, being watched in a sort of lateral way by every other individual. And again, with the ultimate aim of enforcing some sort of code of behavior to let everybody know that they're being watched, which is what is happening in China, and probably to a certain degree here as well, where we simply are aware all the time that our behavior is being rated, is being surveilled, is being observed, and is being evaluated with possible consequences of breaking social norms, expressing an unpopular opinion, acting in a way that could be construed as being antisocial, and the chilling effect, where basically we are conforming to an external code of behavior of some sort. Now, the great idea in Black Mirror is that, again, this is not being done by a centralized authority, but rather it's something that is being done on a local level all the time, because individuals are rating each other, and therefore we're all trying to live up to some sort of code of behavior. This is a new way of imagining the so-called Panopticon, the Jeremy Bentham idea for a prison where everyone would be viewed, all the prisoners would either, it's not that they would be viewed all the time, it's just that the prison architecture would be set up in such a way, as you can see, I think there's some pictures in here somewhere. The architecture would be set up in such a way that the prisoners wouldn't know if they're being surveilled or not. There's a constant possibility of surveillance. So this idea of the Panopticon was really made famous and well known by a work in the 70s by the French philosopher Michel Foucault in a work called Discipline and Punish. This idea of constant surveillance and the constant exercise of power on people has become a kind of a milestone in contemporary thought, I think. But again, what's really interesting is that as they point out, that surveillance doesn't really capture the kind of observation, the kind of constant observation that occurs in some forms of modern digital technology, because there is no centralized authority that's watching everybody. Everybody's watching everybody else. So the word interveillance has been substituted for surveillance. Let me see if I can find the right. Yes, it's right here on page 7, I guess, of the article, where it says, nevertheless, in Nosedive, the surveillance means and control apparatus differ from Bentham's Panopticon, as the show creates a narrative at the crossroad of new media criticism and dystopian culture. Indeed, the logic of surveillance is substituted by a culture of interveillance, in which people enjoy following the activities of others, as well as the automatized reflections of their own data doubles. The world perspective has changed. A vertical control from top to bottom has been replaced by a horizontal form of control where every citizen is watching the other. That I think is very well put. And that's the real reason that I chose this article, and the reason that I gave you Nosedive, or asked you to watch Nosedive. I hope you've had a chance to watch it. And I don't know what you make of that. I mean, read the article. It's a basic, pointing out the basic ideas of moving from a notion of surveillance from the top down to a notion of what they call horizontal surveillance, which I think is a good term, where everyone's watching everyone else. It may be overstated. That's really a matter of your own judgment. I would imagine that most of you have a much richer understanding of social media than I do, because I don't really use it. I have a YouTube channel. That's about it. That's not social media. I don't know. I don't even, I use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any of that stuff. So I don't really understand it. So it may be that the kind of warnings that are being given here are overstated. I don't know. It would really depend on whether or not you think that your own behavior, your own notion of yourself, your own freedom is in some way being restricted by the pressures of presenting yourself in a certain way to others through digital forms of technology in general, social media, other things. I don't know. This idea of parasia is just basically means speaking freely. Whether we believe that we really have an opportunity to speak freely, whether we really have an opportunity to speak what we consider to be the truth, we have to have those. It's vital that we maintain those spaces in which we can do that, and really, in your judgment, have modern forms of digital technology, social media, other forms, really, are they progressively eliminating the opportunities for actually speaking freely? Again, that's something for you to judge as an individual. I don't think anybody can actually say that categorically, yes or no. I think that this idea of parasia, or free speech, speaking the truth, really does play out at the end of Black Mirror, when the two people who have been sort of shoved out of recognition, who have been forcibly ejected from this interveillance state, you could say, when they finally have an opportunity to speak without being monitored in any way, is that a moment of truth? I mean, obviously not in a way that they're just abusing each other, but they're just really happy that they can say bad things about each other. It's really an expression of love, right? But presumably the people who have been ejected from that interveillance state that exists in nosedive have an opportunity to speak freely, just because ironically, they've been liberated from those restrictions.